This match matters a lot for everybody whose career is involved because no one remembers who's in the semifinals, only care about who's in the finals.
TLA is just their one game plan is just playing towards Viper. If Viper doesn't get ahead, I feel like they kind of just fall apart.
We shut down Viper, it's game over.
Viper will once again provide the dive. He'll set up the Galio.
CLG, they try to pride themselves on their teamwork and not as much their individual skill, but I really don't think their teamwork's that good either.
I have kick flash. I'm going to look for it.
I want to get our team to win, and I'll do whatever it takes to do that.
Kick back from Wiggly.
I have my first international event in MSI, and now I get to play at Academy Worlds, so I'm just really pumped for it.
Welcome everyone to the 2018 North American Academy League playoffs, also known as Academy Worlds. We're coming to you live from the NALCS studio in Los Angeles, where the top 4 Academy teams will leave it all on Summoner's Rift to earn the title of Academy Champion. My name is David Freak Turley. I've taken over the Academy caster desk and an analyst desk, I should say, with the help of CLG support and guest analyst Vincent Biofrost Wang. Welcome. And of course, Aiden Zyrian Moon, welcome to you as well.
Thank you. How you doing, Biofrost?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here.
Good. You're going to say something?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hopefully never for the rest of the show either. Now, last week we saw our first 2 days of postseason competition with defending champions FlyQuest Academy up against Clutch Gaming's Academy team on Thursday, and that one was a doozy.
Yeah, that one went to 5 games, and even though Clutch Gaming Academy was the higher seeded team coming in, people were kind of expecting FlyQuest Academy to win, you know, having Meteos on the team, the fact that they are actually the champions of Academy last split. And I was really interested in Clutch Gaming's performance because Piglet and also Sun, who was playing Akali for a lot of that series, popped off and kind of was back and forth. It was win one, lose one, right? And ultimately, FlyQuest did come out with the win off the back of Meteos.
Yeah, obviously a great player. Of course, the other matchup on Friday, we had another 5-game series. This one was Counterlogic Gaming and 100 Thieves Academy teams. CLG, of course, claimed victory on that day.
Yeah, that was another 5-game series in CLG. You know, it was interesting because they were only 1 game up in the regular season, and they had never beaten 100 Thieves Academy before that, but that was one that went the distance. That was another one that people were expecting to be kind of one-sided.
That game was really close, and I watched it live, and it was really scary a lot of times, for sure, for CLG.
Yeah, why was it so scary for them?
I think they were playing like a really crazy team comp with just Kaisa, like one straight threat with Galio, and you could see a lot of times Otto just like went in, ulted in, and he just immediately flashed out because it was super scary, because if he died, then CLG would just end up losing.
Yeah, and Tuesday's like a pretty big role player for the team. Like he has played the Galio, he's played like the Syndra and stuff like that when he's kind of had to fall back to the control mages, but I think that game in particular was one where him being able to play the Galio alongside Otto on the Kaisa was kind of how they won it, was having another defensive person for Otto to go in and kind of have his back.
Yeah, and of course, CLG came away with the win on that one. So with that, let's take a look at our Academy playoff bracket with our 4 remaining teams. Cloud9 and Team Liquid Academy finished the regular season in the top 2 spots, earning that bye into this week's semifinals. As that higher seed, C9 earned the right to select their semifinal opponent. They chose FlyQuest, and that's going to be tomorrow. Of course, that sets us up for today's matchup, which is Team Liquid Academy versus CLGA. And that's going to be a fun one here, just like the quarterfinals. This is going to be a best-of-5 match, just like before, but one change moving forward. The game's going to be on 8.16. They are moving a patch forward.
Ooh, I actually love that so much, because normally it's locked and it would be 8.15 throughout the playoffs. But because in the past, every time I've talked to, even in Challenger and Academy, when it reaches the semifinals and the finals, the Challenger and the Academy teams go, we have nobody to scrim. Because you're in the finals, you have one more opponent, you're not going to scrim them, and then the LCS teams don't want to scrim you because you're a patch behind. So now they actually get to scrim LCS teams while they prepare for their matches, and I think that's a really good change.
I think it's pretty good because, at least for our Academy team, we scrimmed them a couple times, and they're pretty good, and I think they were really prepared going into this match.
Yeah, I mean, you brought a couple of players last week, actually, that played Fallen Bandit and Wiggly both, so you're confident in those guys?
I'm pretty confident in them. I think they had a pretty good showing, considering that we actually didn't have that much practice with them going into that LCS week, and I think both Wiggly and Fallen Bandit performed pretty well under the circumstances.
Was the goal to give them just some practice time, like because you guys were locked out of playoffs already?
Yeah, for sure. Since we didn't really have like any stakes in the game, we thought, why not just test out the Academy players and let them have a shot on stage? I think that they've been playing really well throughout the regular season, so they definitely deserve some time on stage. And they're pretty nervous, but I think they did well.
Is Wiggly never could the split? He's eligible.
I mean, he only played 2 games, but he did play pretty well those 2 games. That's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
you also made him look really good. Like the Bard ultimate to save him from the Syndra ulti, that was 300 IQ. That was so good.
I'm happy that Wiggly did that so that I could get the Bard.
So let's redirect to 8.16 now that we're on it, of course. It's going to be the playoff patch for the NALCS, of course, but this gets to be kind of the world first of 8.16 in competitive play. The patch came out a week ago, so it's the pro start. This had nerfs to Aatrox, Zoe, Fizz, nerfs to some of the offensive runes, like a lot of the domination rune. Yeah, you're seeing the Tom Kench nerf in there as well. But yeah, a lot of damage runes and domination sorcery went down as well. So what sort of strikes you in this patch?
I think the biggest one, at least for support, is going to be Tom Kench. Tom Kench is a champion that just changes the way how bot lane works completely. And if he's not a champion that is in the meta, then the pools will change considerably. Then Alistar becomes a high priority pick, Braum becomes a high priority pick, and we're pretty much going to see a lot more like assassins because Tom Kench is not in the meta. But then they also nerfed like Fizz, and they also nerfed a lot of the electricity damage.
Down, sure.
So it's going to be hard to say what ends up coming to this game.
I actually had a question about Bard in particular, because it's really easy for him to proc electrocute, right? And now you can get electrocute every wave because it's every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So is this a buff to somebody like Bard, or is it a nerf because he doesn't get to all in and have that gigantic amount of burst from electrocute?
Well, you pretty much get electrocute from one auto in the queue, and that just means that you are doing a lot of consistent damage. But as Bard, you usually don't actually trade that often. So, I mean, I'm always down to see more Bard gameplay. I don't think...
Me too.
Yeah, no one really plays Bard, so it'd be cool to see if it came out today, but probably pretty unlikely.
Probably
Okay.
not. All right, well, Joey, Phil, Bard. Of course, the table has been set. It's time to send it over to the casters to meet the teams for game one.
Thank you very much, Freak, and good afternoon, Academy fans. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, ready to bring the hype alongside S-tier analyst and color commentator Mark Zimmerman. That's
also known as a relocated analyst desk member.
Yeah, this is one of the few times that we get to take one of three times that Mark gets to take to the legitimate LCS casting stage as opposed to casting from the analyst desk. Cherish this moment, Mark. But before we dive into the stories of today's combatants, let's take a look to see who's heading onto the Rift. Selecting blue side for game number one of this series is Team Liquid Academy, with Viper in the top lane, Hard in the jungle, Insanity at mid, Shoryu and Joey bottom and support, with Coach Tim Kira.
And on the red side for game one, it's Counter Logic Gaming. In the top lane, Fallen Bandit, Wiggly in the jungle, Tuesday in the mid lane, the auto-filled bot lane with Coach Exogen.
Now, Team Liquid Academy has been a dominant force in the amateur scene for quite some time now, so it's no surprise to see them here in the Academy semifinals, now 2 splits in a row.
Even before the Academy League existed, Team Liquid was investing in the next generation of LCS players, and with 19 former players having started on LCS teams, they have a pretty solid track record of finding and picking up good players. This year, it's been the solo lanes that have stood out for the team. TLA regularly puts both in-game and draft resources towards the top lane, which allows Viper's mechanical skills to shine through on the fighters and carries he likes to play. In the mid lane, Insanity took the place of Mickey for the summer split. It was big shoes to fill for the rookie player, but Insanity has looked quite good on TLA. He looked at his best at the beginning of the split, taking roaming, supportive style mages, and the 8.16 nerfs to assassins should actually be pretty good for him.
And Team Liquid Academy has solo lane strength in spades, but the jungle edge has to go over to CLG, with Wiggly coming in hot after an incredible LCS debut last week.
Yeah, in playoffs, we talk a lot about momentum, and there's nothing better than winning a 5-game series and then blasting through 2 teams in the LCS over the next 2 days. So he had a great weekend. Fallen Bandit also had his crack at the LCS, even getting a chance to get his signature Mundo pick, but it was definitely Wiggly that stole the show and is a player that TLA is going to need to look out for moving forward. Ultimately, where CLG is going to find success, and you heard the players mentioning it in the SOTs, it's most likely their teamwork. These 2 teams only finished 1 game apart in the regular season, and so the X factor should be the synergy that CLG players have built up over the years. We could hear Otto popping off in the huddle after their 5-game series last week, and a hyphy attitude coming into these games can give them the advantage when victory is balanced on a knife's edge.
Well, let's see how fired up they can get. We'll be getting into Champion Select here in just a moment. Remember, it is best of 5. It is a patch 8.16 from here on out in the Academy League playoffs, or Academy Worlds, as some of the players so affectionately refer to it.
I love the name, too. I mean, there's no other Academy system in the world.
It doesn't get bigger than this, Mark.
This is it. This is the entire world of Academy players.
And the Koreans didn't qualify for this one.
No, unfortunately not. There's always that time, too, that we had the collegiate worlds that people never know about. And I think it was UCLA or UCI maybe that went over there and actually like won a tournament against a bunch of Korean collegiate students. So
Hell yeah. All right, well, let's see who's going to find themselves the edge here in the draft for game number 1. Team Liquid Academy banning out Gangplank, Nocturne, and Poppy, while CLG Academy targets Rise and Kindred to begin.
oh my God, there is no Aatrox ban on the red side. The nerfs have done it. They have freed us from the tyranny of red side Aatrox bans.
We've seen it so much this split. It's been almost a permanent fixture, but it's finally let through. But another thing let through is that Akali, which will be immediately selected for TLA.
Yeah, not actually nerfed at all in 8.16. It's a champion that in solo queue and for the majority of the player base does not seem to be overpowered by any stretch of the imagination. But in competitive play, we've seen people do some pretty nutty stuff on it. So we'll see who grabs that. It does say Viper champion, but we haven't seen it in the top lane really at all. It's almost always mid, better matchups, shorter lane, all that stuff. And so Insanity does have the name that says I should play Akali, but we have not seen him play too many champions like it.
Well, CLG Academy's response to it to pick up a pretty powerful marksman for themselves there in the bottom lane and grabbing the Varus. They're also going to have the Galio there in the mid lane for Tuesday.
And so what's interesting about this is the week 9 matchup that they played to get the tiebreaker. It all came down to who was going to get potentially that bye. TLA did win that, and Tuesday had played the Akali, and Insanity took the Galio into it. It was Tuesday's second time ever playing the champion. Clearly struggled a little bit. TLA this time on the flip side of the matchup, and some other stuff coming in.
Braum, yeah, Braum shows up, but what I'm really looking at right here, Riven locked in for TLA, game number 1. The fact that that's picked up tells me Viper's got no interest in playing the new flashy champions. He's going to be on that signature pick there in the top lane with the Riven, and CLG Academy will have to find something for Fallen Bandit to respond with. For now, though, they're just going to go ahead, pick another member of the front line, grab the Alistair to go up against the Braum.
Yeah, really nice to see. This is a different kind of draft already, man. We saw a lot of tank matchups in one of the series. It was FlyQuest versus Clutch had a lot of that. Second one was also a fair amount of tanks in the top side here.
I'm just happy that the Kench has been benched.
Kench is dead as well. That's one of the priority supports that we saw a lot of. Back then, the meta was kind of like Rakan, Tom Kench, Braum. Feels like Braum is the only one left standing. We saw a lot of Morgana bans too. Rakan didn't actually get touched, surprisingly, so... Oh, he did actually get a small nerf, excuse me. 30 HP level 1 is pretty substantial.
30 HP level and 3 armor.
Yeah.
So,
that can hurt.
a little bit of the stats shaved off there as CLG Academy will think about what they want. I highly doubt it will be Pike, considering they've already got Alistair. They'll go for the Graves now there for Wiggly.
That is the Wiggly champ. This is what he busted out in the LCS stage and was able to find a lot of early kills and then contribute in the team fights later on. They also have a good team comp to back it up so far. 2 front lines all ready to allow this double marksman backline to kind of go crazy, hopefully, but it's going to be tough with a Riven and a Akali jumping on your face.
TLA, what do you got there for the jungle to respond?
They're all in.
All right, they are going all in. Hard will be piloting the Olaf into this one to go up against Wiggly's Graves.
We'll see what, I knew it. I was about to say they're going to take the Swain. This is not a marksman game. You are all 5 diving in, meatball comp. All right, Quinn can work if they end up going between this. Definitely don't like a traditional marksman here when you are not going to get too much help.
Lucian can defend himself better than something like a Varus could, though, right?
And he also doesn't mind dashing in and playing aggressive. You definitely want some kind of aggressive DPS. So whether that was Swain, whether that was...
Nobody that stands in the back and...
You don't want Xayah, you don't want Kate.
No. None of that stuff. They're going to be stuck question mark pinging everybody else the entire game because they will receive no help as everyone else dives in.
Yeah, so I like the Lucian, works with Braum, gives him a good laning phase. And this is definitely an all-in 5v5 team comp. The Jarvan getting taken in is a little surprising.
Okay.
It's a counter to the Olaf in a lot of ways, and it does work very well with the Galio. You have the ability to transport the Galio onto what is usually a backline, but there's basically no backline for TLA, and 3 of the champions have incredible dashes on low cooldowns to get out of the Jarvan ultimate, so...
But it does stick Olaf in there really, really well.
It does stick Olaf in there, but I'm not sure he's the guy you're going to be too concerned with, so we'll see how this works out. It does give them the choice to dive in if they need to. They have a lot of, playmaking at 6 on the side of CLG Academy with their comp. They have the Varus ultimate, they have the J4, the Galio, the Alistar. All those guys can kind of go in there and try and blow these people up. But I think TLA is going to be the one attacking the enemy backlines.
Talking about attacking the backlines and blowing up, Otto's job, he has his work cut out for him this game, surviving as an immobile AD carry up against Akali, Riven, and Olaf. And even like you said, Lucian, one of the more aggro AD carries to have to play against as your opponent. It's going to be hard to stay alive for him this game. Positioning is going to be paramount.
Yeah, this is going to be a really big deal for him. He does have some protection with his team. The Galio ultimate, the Alistar can focus more on pulverizing the assassins when they come in, but you know that requires everyone to be in the right position. So this is going to be a tall task for CLG. Also, TL maybe having the advantage in terms of being able to pick the fights when they want to, pre-6 as well. We saw what Bjergsen did to Hobelter's Akali in laning phase.
Oh, yeah.
Or excuse me, Galio.
Bjergsen was the Akali
yeah.
into the Galio, yeah.
Yeah, so they're obviously aware of how favored that matchup is for Akali in the first couple levels before Galio gets all his abilities.
Galio just tries to hold on and not bleed out early on in the lane. It seems
Yep,
a very unpleasant experience for him.
You're mostly working as a stopgap to the Akali, all things considered. Interestingly, we see the electrocute onto Insanity, and there was something in the discussion around the changes to a lot of these that people overlook. They talked about how a lot of the cooldowns get cut in half, and then the damage should get cut in half as well, quote unquote. But if you're doing that, it actually just makes it harder to keep the same DPS that you would have otherwise, because if I have to proc something once and get 100 damage, or twice and get 50 twice, it's a lot harder to make sure I get both those together.
You've got to find both windows as opposed to a single window in a larger
So
amount.
what Riot actually did with those nerfs, quote unquote, is they actually did not exactly cut the damage in half. They went more like 60-ish%, I think, or 55%, to make sure that that window isn't quite as punishing. So it's not really as big of a nerf to some of these runes as people have been saying, and a lot more about a gameplay change where you don't get bursted quite as hard. But in terms of laning, it should actually play out pretty similarly.
Difficulty of execution has been raised, but overall damage output, if you can execute, should be roughly not that big of a deal.
Right, because it has a little bit more than half, you don't actually quite need to hit the windows exactly as you would if it was straight cut in half damage and cooldowns.
Sanity drops down the smoke. The Obscurity, as I now know it to be called. The last time we casted Academy together, Mark, I believe was the first time we got to see Akali played in Academy, and
it does not roll off the tongue.
No, Obscurity was still a brand new keyword back then, so I was still getting used to all that good times. And I actually believe the last time that we casted this together was also the last time we got to see these two teams face off in the head-to-head in that final week. And even though they finished in the regular season only a single game apart, remember that TLA holds the head-to-head 2-0 against CLG Academy.
And I think a big part of that, because as much as we were talking about CLG, oh, there's the backwards E I love talking about. Not the best trade, but gets it back with the second electrocute proc coming up. But one of the things that we were talking about with CLG and TLA is CLG is kind of the teamwork team a lot of the ways. They have the experience of playing together for 2 years, but TLA, despite playing very aggressive, usually do draft team comps that work well together. Need a hand? You okay?
We're good.
All right.
We're good. I had to fix my chair.
Right. TLA actually has great teamwork as well, is where I was going with this. So that advantage that CLG has over a lot of the other Academy teams is actually one of TLA's strengths as well. And then they often pick more aggressive champions, as we clearly see in this draft.
I just want to see how Riven and Akali are going to work together as this game goes on, because both of these champions are so damn volatile.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are your 6-0 or 0-6 type of champions. What do Riven and Akali do if they fall behind the pace of the game? They walk around and they farm and they try to catch up and they say, clear waves for me, see you at 35 minutes. But if they're ahead, you just roll into the enemy jungle. You don't care about the fact that they've got a Galio or an Alistar. You just go in there and force the plays down.
It's a really weird question, because usually when you have this kind of champion like a Riven, you only want one lane that's that volatile, so you can focus on that lane and get that champion ahead, so then they can go and assassinate backlines, and you let them do that by themselves. And the reason you usually don't pick two is because you need to then try and split your focus and stop them from falling behind, because these champions are relatively useless from behind. They don't have the damage to blow the other person up, and they have to go in to be effective, so either they're dying or they're doing nothing. You have 2 of them on a
It's a
team.
great choice to have to pick between.
Yeah.
Die or do nothing.
Yeah, which one would you prefer, Captain Flower? So it's why you usually don't see 2 of these champions in a team comp together. So it's going to be tough for TLA, but if they do get ahead, it becomes even more annoying when there's now 2 of these people diving in and killing you.
Oh, yeah. Quick update as to why we are paused here at the beginning of this first game. It appears there are some issues with the in-game sound for Wiggly that are being investigated and checked right now, so hopefully that'll be taken care of and we can get back into the game. Hopefully that's not desynced or something, some weird mess that you have. You shoot a chicken and you don't hear it make the bakak noise for an extra second. That could throw you off. I could throw you off, Mark.
Is that a specific bug that you know about?
No, I was just throwing something out.
I was like, why are we talking about chickens?
I think jungling, I think the chicken camp.
That's what you think?
Whenever I need to clear my mind, you know what I think about, Mark? I think about the first chicken clear with Skarner.
You know what I think about?
It is the most boring thing in a game of League of Legends.
I think about the injustice of calling a bunch of raptors chickens.
They're chickens.
That is an insult.
We called them wraiths for about 1.5 years after they got changed.
That was a changing times. It's 2018 now.
It's 2018.
We can call them raptors.
We can also call them chickens.
I still say chickens all the time, too.
Exactly. I'm
just
pretty
arguing-
sure everyone does. I'm pretty sure. Okay, Twitch chat right now, do me a favor. Type chickens or raptors and tell me which one you actually call them. Because I'm pretty sure no one, except for people that type in full proper capitalization and
Chickens
punctuation.
is more letters, so if you're trying to be efficient.
No, but people just call them chickens because it's a more normal word. The kinds of people that capitalize all their sentences and end everything in proper punctuation in-game chat are the kinds of people that call them raptors. There's not many of those people.
I admittedly don't call them raptors either. I think I still call them wraiths in game.
A lot of people still call them wraiths. Where's the chicken spam chat? That's what we need to make sure that these are properly named in the game.
I see a lot of raptors actually. Now that they're getting to it, I guess.
Wait, do people actually call them raptors? There's no way.
There's so many raptors in chat right now. There's a lot of chickens
No,
too.
there's a lot. For every raptor, there's like 3 chickens, Mark. It's a very high ratio of chickens.
What are they actually called? Because there's a.
They're called razor beaks.
Razor beaks.
No one calls them that.
Yeah,
I have
good joke.
I'm pretty sure in my 8 years of playing League of Legends, even though they were wraiths for like 5 of that, I have never heard anyone call them a razor beak.
I still call Gromp white from the one season that.
Where he
or
was
like
a
a half season.
where
that
he
they
was a
didn't
big
reskin it.
where he was a big spooky monster, just
Yeah,
an extra large
he was
wraith.
he was he was increased in size and made just the color white, and then it was WIGHT, the type of ghost.
Oh, apparently our producers have just told me that they're actually called Crimson Raptors and not Razorbeaks. Where did Razorbeak?
Where
come
did
from?
because it used to be Razorbeak.
Yeah, I feel like they used to be Razorbeaks.
So I guess what we're getting out of this is like,
Are we getting
God
anything
damn,
out
does
of this?
the jungle change a lot? Because all those
What
things
are we getting out of this,
everything we have
Mark?
called them has basically been correct at some point.
It just depends on how far back you're willing to think.
I've been here since beta, dude. Like, I've seen the changes. The times are not what they used to be. I remember when you had to go cloth 5 to get through the jungle, and only like 5 champs were viable because those dudes messed you up.
Oh man, Cloth 5. I remember back in the days of Cloth
Boots
5.
3. There's cloth 5, boots 3.
Oh yeah, Cloth 5. Boots 3 was the standard laning thing.
No, but whatever.
Okay, yeah, junglers that had better sustain could do boots.
Yeah.
But I remember, man, back in the day, teaching one of my friends who didn't know how to play the game very well how to jungle. I told him, okay, buy Cloth 5. But he took the wrong runes and masteries or something. He tried to play Rammus, and all I remember is watching this poor little Rammus strut around in the jungle, bonking his head into stuff. He killed himself so many times on the creeps. Every time he died and went back to base, he only had enough money for 2 more potions. So I just see this Rammus strutting out into the map with 2 potions in his inventory. I get to 12 minutes into the game. You know what he has? Cloth armor, boots, 9 health pots. He's ready to go. He's going on a safari.
9 health pots. Back when you could buy more than 5.
Yeah. Back before
13 pot Mordekaiser.
Yeah, 13 pot Mordekaiser and Katarina in mid lane.
So what I was gonna say is I actually kind of like the season 2. Every like the jungle just didn't hurt you back then. So what you would do is you go boots.
Wait, was that when it was a giant meme and everybody just bought Spirit Stone and you could jungle and take 0 damage?
So it wasn't the Spirit Stone stuff. It was just like they just didn't hurt you. So you went boots 3, and then you would go Philostone, Heart of Gold,
Oh, no.
Oracle's Elixir, and the
I
whole
hated that
metagame.
so much.
The whole metagame was that the jungler just and by the way, your mid laners are taking your Raptors on cooldown.
Yeah, all you were was an Oracle bot. It was the worst thing ever.
I'm not gonna say that like it was extremely fun to play, but it was a cool metagame where both the junglers are basically walking ward clears, and with Oracles back then, if you killed them, they lost it. And you
Yeah,
kept
so
it
the
till
first
you died.
jungler to int gets 9x, and the other one gets honored. But
Hey,
even though there
it
was no
rewarded
honor.
game knowledge a ton because I was
No, it didn't. It rewarded not having your team abandon you.
It rewarded you for knowing where the enemy jungler was and how they were clearing and stuff. Because if I knew where you were, I could avoid you, clear all your team's wards, and make you feel pressured.
But if I knew where you were, I wanted to fight you because that's what League of Legends
Dude,
is about.
I played Maokai.
You were the worst kind
Yeah,
of
I
person.
was. I also played. Remember the level 2 Alistar?
Yeah.
Jungle Alistar.
The roaming one from season 1.
No, season 2. You could start. You would just start, walk behind their bot lane turret. You had like 800 base HP, so you would just headbutt them from behind their turret level 2 and then pulve them and just free kill. No one is ever ready for it. There was some great stuff in League.
League of
There was
Legends
still
had some
great
goofy
stuff.
stuff. Were you playing back when Poppy could push Baron?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Blitzcrank could hook him.
Yeah, you used to be able, for those of you who aren't aware, chat, Baron apparently used to be coded as a normal minion and not an immobile one. So Poppy and Blitzcrank could move his big, goofy self, and you could just shove him into the enemy base, and he would still have so much regeneration because he's Baron and, you know, he has an aggro range like every other camp. You just shove him into the base, and then he's immortal, and he just destroys everything.
Speaking of Poppy, oh my God, old Poppy was an abomination. Triple Philostone.
Yup.
You had the most broken passive in the game. It was if any damage would deal more than 10% of your max health, that extra damage got cut in half. So if you had no max health and a LeBlanc tried to burst you for 2k
It did no damage.
it would do like 1k damage and that's it. And
Yeah.
that's like the whole LeBlanc assassin burst combo. And you can just build resist as well. So that's before resist. And you're like,
Old Poppy was just like not even a character from this video game. She oomed herself in 2 spells and then never died. But all right, Mark and I are going to continue on our trip down memory lane. We're going to toss you guys back to the analyst desk now as the pause continues to be investigated.
Well, thank you for those nightmares reminding us of old Poppy. I think all of us were around back in those
Lollipoppy
days.
especially.
Oh, Lollipoppy.
I wasn't actually there for that.
When did you start playing League, actually?
End of season 2, so.
Okay, was that? I mean, that was still old Poppy though. See,
Yeah.
Poppy Reorg was like super recent. It was like season 5.
Oh, actually, I do remember old
yeah.
Poppy.
Okay, good.
He doesn't remember like multiple Sunfire Garen or multiple Sunfire Evelyn with
Yeah.
like a minute-long stealth.
No,
Yeah.
none of that was there. That's okay though. Of course, we do have a pause, unfortunately, in this game. TLA though up 200 gold, so you know
There's
they're
that.
guaranteed to win. Kappa. But I think it's interesting though. So we'll talk about the game a little bit. The sort of situation we're in. You've got pick ban on your screen right there. We heard Wiggly talk about in the pregame that TLA knows how to play through Viper, and that's it. Now, that got them in second place regular season. Clearly, that's a pretty good strategy. Viper's pretty good at League of Legends. So looking at this draft, looking at these compositions, the fact that there's a Riven versus Jarvan top lane, is this a Viper 1v9 game?
I think it's actually slightly different because when I look at TLA's draft, it's literally saying we can play through any lane. They have a Kali, they have Lucian Braum bot lane. They also have the Riven top, so they can play through any lane. And I think for CLG, it's more defined by them making a play on bot lane at level 6 with Galio ulti, or they can also do the same thing on top. So they're not really playing through mid, and it's just going to depend on whether or not CLG can like snowball from the side lanes. And if they don't end up snowballing, then there's a possibility of Lucian Braum, just all their lanes just winning just straight up.
I think that like that 2-on-2 in the bot lane and all the solos especially are just all advantaged.
Yeah, I would give the advantage to TLA's bot lane for Lucian Braum because it's a really strong duo, and for Varus Alistar, you're kind of just sitting there to farm and maybe look for the level 6 play. But as for top lane, I think that it's kind of just to see whichever top laner has their jungler up there and whoever gives more pressure. But it is Viper Riven, so who knows?
Look at the Olaf ganks anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of the X factor there. When I look at this draft, I'm kind of CLG look like a combo team to me, Jarvan plus Galio, and you can make plays and be very proactive and dive. So if they get ahead, I expect them to make a lot of plays where they're kind of fighting for turrets and forcing the pace of the game, because TLA's composition, and actually both compositions honestly, lack a lot of wave clear. So this isn't going to come down to sieging. This is going to come down to a lot of fighting, I think. And the issue is if TLA gets some early kills off skirmishes, they can snowball really hard. And if an Akali or a Riven is ahead, they don't have to go to the team fights and they can just win their 1v1s. And that's kind of the worry here for CLG, is they look more combo oriented, whereas TLA look more like individual, like you were saying, Biofrost, play through any lane type of composition.
Yeah.
So it's a little scary because you can't give up an advantage as CLG to pretty much anywhere.
So I'm curious about this. I want to press this sort of different comps with different goals sort of situation. What does like an ideal, or at least like a really good first 15 minutes look like for TLA versus CLGA? Like if you could sort of dictate how the laning phase goes, whether it's a gold lead or no kills or whatever, like what are you kind of hoping for on either side that sets up the mid game to go the way you want?
I think from CLG's side, I would want nothing to happen like pre-6. And once level 6 happens, then they should get vision around like one side, whichever side that they're planning to play off of, either like the Varus Alistar or maybe on the side of
Graves.
Jarvan Graves. So whichever side they control, then they just keep up the pressure because they're constantly scared of, oh, maybe Galio can come dive bot this wave, or maybe Galio can dive top. So if they have vision control, then it's going to be really hard for TLA to answer to that, and they're just going to constantly miss waves of farm. And the one time that the jungler is not there to defend that side, then they're going to dive.
Yeah, you get 500 gold in the turret, basically.
Yeah.
And for TLA, the first 15 minutes kind of looks like they get a few kills onto either the Riven or the Akali, and potentially even the Lucian, because if you can play through bottom lane and control dragons, you set up the top side of the map to be left alone. And I think that the Riven does fine in the Jarvan matchup, right? I don't think that's one where Jarvan has like really any threat of killing her. She can get out of his ultimate. And I think there's actually more pressure on the Jarvan to kind of survive the laning phase, max Q and just wave clear, and play for the team fights. So like you said, kind of want nothing to happen for CLG. For TLA, they kind of want more to happen. And the Olaf, I think, needs to be a little more active on the top half of the map between the Akali and the Riven and try to make something happen there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think you often want to attack Galio because he'll otherwise just like help the other ganks, of course.
And that's probably the one that you go for because he's It's harder for him to escape than for a Jarvan to escape.
Yeah. So I want to press on this this Jarvan Akali, or sorry, Jarvan versus Riven matchup top lane because Fallen Bandit very clearly I think picked for comp, not for lane. This doesn't seem like a great matchup for him. So how often does it sort of like happen where you're like, all right, you know, whether you're last picking support or like Darshan's picking his top lane or whatever, and you're like, all right, well I'm gonna willingly get slammed, but it's going to help like Galio engage 10 minutes down the line. Like how often do you have to make that sacrifice? How often can you plan for that so that you're not feeling too bad?
You're kind of just hoping that if you're playing for comp, then that means you have some advantage elsewhere, that if you're losing lane, then another lane is winning. If that isn't the case, where you just have 3 losing lanes, then you're kind of just AFK in the early game and you're just hoping that mid game you have a one lucky team fight that kind of brings you back into the game.
Sure.
If I'm playing on that side, then I wouldn't be comfortable with just like AFK farming in the early game and just hoping for a good team fight. But in terms of like Fallen Bandit playing for comp, I think that it actually doesn't make too much sense. Even though they do have a Jarvan Galio, they don't really have an immobile AD carry. They have Lucian, and they also have Braum, Akali that he can also escape pretty easily.
So your dive's not even that good.
Yeah, it's not even that good, and it's not like you're playing against a control mage like Syndra or like an immobile AD carry like Ashe.
Okay, well I got to stop you here. I think we have the game ready to go, so back to the casters and get ourselves back into the game.
Mark and I have returned from our trip down memory lane talking about poppies and chickens and philosopher's stones and all sorts of other great things that used to exist in League of Legends, but they weren't actually that great, so they don't exist anymore for a damn fine reason. But now, we're about to bring you back into Summoner's Rift in the modern day and age to see what is going down between Team Liquid Academy and CLG.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with the points that Biofrost is making at the end there, where, you know, CLG actually have a really nice looking comp until you look across the Rift and wonder who they're going to pull that comp off against. It's actually, I would hope they understand they should not be the ones diving, and then they start playing a little bit more defensively, prioritizing their cooldowns on saving their double marksman comp versus trying to kill the enemy's very mobile assassin mid laner or mobile marksman. So we'll see if CLG recognizes the way the two comps are likely going to interact.
Do you really think Graves is a second marksman?
No, not in the traditional sense, but he is fairly high, like probably the highest damage teamfight jungler in the game. So I think it is fair to consider him, at least for the sake of simplicity, a second marksman.
All right, I always considered him more of a fighter that happened to have a longer range auto.
Yeah, I think whichever one you want to call it is fine, but he definitely can kite, whereas a lot of fighters cannot. So that's why I tend to prefer the the marksman tag.
I'll accept that. I'll accept that. Neither of these guys in the jungle, neither player in the jungle has been able to find themselves any early ganks so far this game. You do see the Predator boot immediately being bought for hard. Got to make use of that keystone by buying the boot, of course, otherwise you get no value out of it. You can also see Wiggly picking himself up the Skirmisher Saber along with that boot there at the start. Mid lane, nice CS advantage early on for Insanity over Tuesday's Galio. We already talked a bit how this matchup early on, just you pick the Galio to sort of provide an answer to the Akali as she tries to dive in and assassinate people. You can taunt her out of her shroud and you can try to protect the person she's bursting, but at the same time, if she's just getting a free laning phase, it doesn't feel fantastic.
No, and Tuesday also going for a little bit more lane focus of a build with the double Dark Seal as opposed to trying to get his Abyssal, or excuse me, Rod of Ages online, which is the first item that they usually go for on the Galio. So trying to not get harassed out as much, make more of that refillable pot, but see how it goes.
Top lane's also a significant farm lead for Viper compared to Fallen Bandit. Remember, it was Viper who picked this Riven 3rd pick overall in the draft for Team Liquid Academy. CLGA did have the opportunity to respond to that with what they wanted, and what they wanted was that Jarvan, but Fallen Bandit is not doing much to keep Viper down, which is honestly a pretty tough task.
Yeah, it's a little scary when both their soul laners are taken blind in the first part of the draft, and you come up with two losing lanes that are supposed to combo together not even particularly well. So we'll see, you know, if they find better answers in the future, because otherwise this looks like a massive advantage for TLA on blue side, which a lot of people feel like already is a little bit of the favorite. But with some of the global bans, you know, like the Aatrox no longer being needed to be picked up, you might be able to see a little bit more flexibility on red moving forward.
And you can already see almost a 500 gold lead for Team Liquid Academy, even though there are no kills or objectives on the board, just because of the way the lanes are playing out. The early leads that they've been able to find through these strong solo laners that we were talking about is one of the reasons why this team has been as successful as they have in Academy so far this split.
Right, and Wiggly does have the farm lead on the Olaf, which is nice to see, as you should. But that's a small compensation. I wonder if what these guys' mental state is after a fairly long pause at the very start of a best of 5 for a bunch of players who have not had very much stage experience. You got to imagine that this is less than ideal for them.
Oh, absolutely. Pauses are something that you can see get to players even that have plenty of experience playing on the stage. But as you said, a lot of these guys, this is some of their first experience here. Getting used to it, having to play in the higher pressure situations, going from the best of 1s of the regular split to the best of 5 now here in playoffs. Hard moving into the enemy jungle, looking to steal this red buff away from Wiggly. Does that just fine. He has level 6 and Wiggly does not, so Wiggly wanted to get the hell out of dodge before that turned dicey.
Yeah, not much you could do about that. Also, his mid laner was back in base, keeping back in. And the top lane had pressure as well, so that's definitely not something Wiggly can fight over. Good decision, you just pop the wall. Don't get greedy for it. Try and go back to farming, but a nice invade by Hard. The first interaction of the junglers.
Fallen Bandit doing a good job in the top side, trading back and forth with Viper, just getting the instant Dragon Strike into the auto passive to make sure that he gets a quick trade that Viper doesn't really have much of a chance to respond to, considering he's too close to the turret to go all in on any kind of a big combo. Bottom side, you can see nobody level 6 just yet, but they are getting very close. And that means everyone on the map will soon have ultimates available, which means hopefully someone will be looking to make a play.
And that's really when CLG's comp should start coming online a little bit more. With the Galio getting the global usage, as well as the fact that his laning gets a little bit not better against the Akali, but just easier in the fact that your wave clear does a little bit more. You're able to not get as poked out as you are when you don't push the wave quite as fast, and you need to sit next to Akali in that shroud for a long period of time. Hopefully that allows him to get on the map, because otherwise I think TLA is more than happy to kind of just take this extended laning phase, keep building up those CS advantages that they have in every lane and the jungle right now.
Yeah, it's not really about getting to a point where you can fight the Akali. It's just interacting with her as little as possible by wave clearing in a super effective fashion.
Right, and then getting somewhere else on the map and trying to impact it. Obviously, you heard them talking about how their ultimates all work very well together. You can start things off with a Varus ultimate and then chain it.
We go top side. Viper finds a little bit of damage onto Fallen Bandit, but by a little bit, I mean a very small amount. Just barely puts a dent in the HP bar there. Fallen Bandit takes a swig of the corrupting potion, and Insanity's standing right on top of a ward here, so Team Liquid Academy quickly going to realize this plan is not playing out the way they expected it to. Fallen Bandit gets himself back far enough to not fall victim to the 3-man dive, while Wiggly sees the opportunity to clear out some vision on the other side of the map.
Yeah, but CLG are going to respond very appropriately. They use their time in the mid lane to push it, start working their way down to potentially threaten to dive, but TLA actually have pretty good vision control to spot anything coming. They have some wards in the river, they have some wards on the red buff to spot if they go down that path. They see that no one's coming, and they actually don't really need to back off the turret at all. CLG instead, looking like they're 5-man scuttle grabbing.
Just making sure they've got it secured, that's all. Don't want to have your jungler end up losing.
They pulled the Drake out. I was like, they are standing in the river a long time.
See if they can make this play happen here. It's Phil going into the front lines, looking to provide the crowd control onto Joey. Still tanking things up with the ulti. First blood comes through there for Wiggly. CLGA now trying to get everybody out. Phil's going to be taken very low, taken down now. Sure, you grab the kill on now, and the Jarvan ulti comes through. Tuesday grab the kill now onto Viper. It's 3-for-1 overall for CLG Academy. Make it for a double kill for Wiggly.
And there we see the first time that they all go at it. TLA taking a straight 5v5 versus the comp, and CLG very intelligently not blowing their cooldowns on Phil's engage is one of the most important things that they did in that fight. They actually held it for the Assassins of TLA to collapse and did not get overeager trying to finish the Braum off. And I gotta say, very smart play out of them. Rewards them a ton of kills and the first Drake of the game. So already dealing with TLA's aggressive comp well.
All right, let's take another look at how it happened with this fight breaking out at the Drake.
So right away, they just go on to Joey, and they want to punish him for walking forward, chunk the Braum out as much as they can. Great, the TP's finished. Phil flashes in, and Fallen Bandit can follow, but Tuesday makes sure he doesn't drop his ult, and they stay all pumped up. And now it's a very nice engage. The exhaust does come down onto Viper to stop him from getting too much damage in. And then this is where the Galio taunt can come in, the Galio ult can come in and knock everyone up and make sure that they keep Auto alive through all of that. So super smart play out of CLG. Not all tunneling on following up on Phil's flash engage.
Really good stuff. Puts them at an almost 1,000 gold advantage, considering they were down earlier. It means that that fight was quite a big turnaround for them, along with getting the Earth Drake, which will be very effective for grabbing objectives later. And you can see in that last team fight, when Tuesday has the opportunity to slam down with the ult onto multiple people, taunt multiple people, Winds of War hits multiple people, he's going to top some damage, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, TLA have a lot of dive onto a backline, and that's great, but you definitely don't want to do it through all 5 members of the enemy team. And that one mistake could be a big problem. You heard what the Death was talking about with the lack of wave clear available for both comps. The fact that they kind of have to go in to be effective. And when you fall behind, you suddenly can't deal with this fighter / marksman Graves sieging your turret down mid lane. You're in a lot of trouble, and that could have been already a back-breaking mistake for TLA.
You saw Wiggly throw out the ulti there just to force Insanity back so he couldn't sit under the turret and clear and continue to farm. Does make him return to base and heads back into his own jungle to continue farming up now. Hard will be forced to clear out the mid lane here, and with his own mid laner back, that means he's not in a position to invade the enemy jungle again and try to steal away that red buff like he did last time. So Wiggly will make sure he maintains control over his topside jungle this time around. And with the way that last play worked out and the subsequent moves towards the mid lane forcing Insanity out, that CS lead that Insanity had built up for himself over the course of the laning phase is now completely gone. He's behind 12 CS compared to Tuesday's Galio.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely huge, as well as the fact that Wiggly caught back up with Hard, also got 3 of the kills in that 4-kill fight is huge for the Graves, already finishing his jungle item and getting the Ninja Tabbies to make sure that he's not as susceptible to this fairly physical damage team comp. The only magic damage they have is Insanity, and even then the Akali is not going to be building a bunch of teamfight AoE magic damage.
She's still part physical as well.
And part physical, so you'll see that that's actually going to be a really smart purchase for Wiggly.
Armor very heavily effective against the Team Liquid Academy comp. You can see not only the early tabbies onto the Graves, but onto the Jarvan as well. Postponing the first big item to make sure he's got those. You can see Viper doing the same thing here on the Riven, knowing that most likely, if he gets into a skirmish, it's going to be against the Jarvan and the Graves. So the Ninja Tabbies will go a long way in preventing that. Both AD carries with their Blades of the Ruined King online 13 minutes into this game. Everybody's still content, just continuing to farm up for now, continuing to play this one a little bit slower. Sometimes you see Academy matches get really, really spicy, really, really quick. You see the team just go for fights and fights and fights and fights, but this time around, they're saying, all right, there's plenty on the line here. Let's make sure that we keep it cool.
Yeah, I think TLA, after losing that 5v5, is going to slow the game down a little bit more and hopefully find some odd man fights in their favor, which they can hopefully do with all the mobility that their champions have. And once turrets start dropping, that should become slightly easier. They do need to worry about the global of Tuesday, both his teleport and his ultimate able to collapse in on any fights that might break out in the side lanes. But that's a worry for a different day because all the turrets are still up.
Sure, you and Joey will continue pushing up the bottom side here as Otto and Phil, yeah, they'll take a couple hits onto the turret, but they don't really care too much about it. It's still rather easy to farm up all these minions. CLG will continue just hanging tight for now. Like you said, the problem here for CLG, though, is that so much of the playmaking, the trigger pull, is in the hands of TLA. It's very easy for them to decide where they want to fight and then execute on it. CLG feels a little bit off balance trying to force a fight of their own. They've got to find a way to do that that doesn't put them too far forward.
I think that's the big part. It's not that they don't have the tools to do it, but not going too far forward. I mean, it's very tempting to say, all right, flash Galio ult, or flash Alistar engage, and I'll Galio ult on top of you. And then if you do that, and you don't get the assassins in that combo, they're going to flank around from the side.
Your Varus is dead.
Your Varus is dead, 100%. So it is something which will require a lot of restraint out of CLG, not going anytime they see an opportunity, but only when it's the right opportunity.
And on that note, I want to go back to what you pointed out in that first big fight that CLG won so handedly. They demonstrated a level of patience that oftentimes you'll even see the LCS teams themselves, the main rosters, fail to do in saying, okay, that's just Braum, don't worry about it. I think Braum is probably the #1 champion that comes to mind for me that teams will over-index on trying to kill him for some damn reason. You spend way too many resources, the rest of the team comes in, and all of a sudden, reinforcements have arrived, the game's over the other way. CLG did a great job of prioritizing targets and not falling into that trap.
I mean, there's a handful of tanky supports that definitely kind of fall into that category of, wait, why did we just drop so many cooldowns on him? And it's
Hold on, he's still alive.
Yeah, it's very tempting to do because often the supports are the ones the furthest forward, fighting for the vision control, and against the Braum, Tahm Kench, Alistar, these people who have defensive abilities, you drop a couple thousand damage into them, they don't die, and then the rest of the enemy team shows up in time to punish your cooldowns being down. And like you said, it was very smart by CLG, knowing that they could engage on him, knowing that they could force him out, but still have enough cooldowns to take the rest of the fight.
Nobody's super tanky in this game just yet. Even the people that will be those frontline fighters are honestly just big HP sponges at this point. You can see Rod of Ages, Titanic Hydra on the Galio and the Jarvan respectively. Olaf's got the Cinder Hulk with Kindle Gem up and running. Tanky support item completed. Nope. Over the wall it goes, but it just ends up giving Wiggly a little bit of extra help as he waits for the smite to make sure he secures that one. As Tuesday heads himself back into the mid lane, that Rod of Ages stacked up to 6 out of 10, so nearly at maximum efficiency on that item. Insanity with his Gunblade. One of the most niche items in the game. Very useful for only a few champions, but the champions it is useful for, it is just absolutely mandatory.
Oh yeah. And right now, in terms of meta, that basically falls on Akali. Katarina, another one that really enjoys it. I've not seen too much in competitive play. As we see potential fight here.
Otto might be in some trouble. 3 versus 2 is not a fight CLG's going to win anytime soon, and Shoryu picks up the kill.
Yeah, kind of hard to disengage from Olaf when he gets to start on your face. A lot of times the trouble of Olaf is getting there, but hey, if you are instantly starting the fight with all your cooldowns up right next to the guy, and especially when it's a marksman, you're going to have a pretty good time.
I love how tilt-proof Phil is immediately donking the bell after his 80 carry gets
He's like, all right, not bad.
He's like, all right, here you go. I'll applaud that one.
Nice play by Harb being able to sneak into that brush. Finds a kill back for their bot lane, but doesn't feel like they're going to be able to grab anything off that. The rest of CLG Academy rotating down. And here's what we're talking about. Usually the struggle of Olaf is getting into this range, but yeah, when you start there, that's a dead guy. I think Otto immediately after flashing was like, why did I just flash?
It's like there was no point in that. He does save the heal. He saves the ultimate. He realizes there's no way out immediately after the flash, but fortunately for Team Liquid Academy, they do get the summoner along with the kill.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's sometimes funny to watch in pro play is that they are so fast mechanically reacting to things, sometimes their brain's lagging a little bit behind, and you say, flash that! And it's like, okay, nice, but
probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly. You see that all across the world, all levels of pro play, just their mechanics are too good sometimes.
Top side. Jungle clear for Wiggly, continuing along as efficient as ever, working towards that black cleaver there for the Graves for second item. Still sitting on the 3 kills that he got earlier that have helped pad that economy, make sure that he's able to stay with the curve of the game, maintain that relevance there on the Graves. Has the black cleaver completed now in the inventory. This game is not going anywhere anytime soon, Mark. We're just about 45 seconds away from when Baron spawns, so we may see the teams get a little bit more eager to make something happen around vision plays for that objective, but with the game being as deadlocked as it is, one big mistake or one big well-executed play could determine the tempo for the rest of the game.
Definitely not what I was expecting heading into the 20-minute mark of this game, to only have one turret down and it being the mid lane of TLA. Not at all what I thought it would be, and it kind of speaks to the fact that CLG has done a good job kind of controlling what should be a very aggressive Team Liquid Academy. But one thing I'll say about Viper and his Riven, the reason it's so good and he still gets picked in competitive play versus solo queue is his ability to find good opportunities in team fight and split push situations, which is usually hard to do on the pick. And that's one of the reasons you often don't see it in competitive, is that it is a very hard champion to execute on. But time and time again in the Academy, Viper has found those plays that are usually so hard to do, and he does it when he's not even ahead. I mean, if you're a 6-0 Riven and your job is to flash onto a backline, great, but he does find other opportunities as well, even when he is something like 0-1-1.
He also has hit that 40% CDR mark on the Riven, 30% in the inventory, 10% on the Transcendence with the Sorcery Rune. So he's got an incredible amount of mobility, whether he's going into the fights or escaping the collapses from the split push. Fallen Bandit will have to just be content farming it out with them, making sure he keeps those waves cleared so Viper doesn't have the opportunity to do anything really aggro here in the side lane. Tuesday charging forward mid, but won't really find the opportunity to do a whole lot as Insanity gets himself away with the Shroud. Fallen Bandit going to be on the wrong end of a trade up against Viper here.
This is a really hard game to predict, because it does feel like if CLG Academy play the team fights properly, use their defensive cooldowns on peeling, that TLA will have a hard time winning those fights. But TLA also feels like they should have the split push advantage. Should the game stall out to late, it doesn't feel like anyone will be able to handle the Riven in a 1v1 once you get to 3.5, 4 items. So it does potentially feel like the onus is on CLG a little bit to pick up the pace of the game. As we head into the 21-minute mark, they do have the Mountain Drake and the Cloud Drake, so who knows, maybe they start going to pressure around Baron buff in about 3 or 4 minutes once they get a couple more items. Instead, they're actually on cue, rotating their bot lane up to the top side to make a play.
Wiggly coming around from behind here as well. Could be a 4-man collapse. Wiggly is going to make sure he finds a little bit of damage onto Viper, but Viper knows something smells a little bit funny here. Gets himself back in time. Shoryu jumps in to find some damage onto Wiggly, unleashes the culling that Fallen Bandit will just make sure that he face tanks to prevent any more damage onto his own jungler. And the CLG Academy rotation strikes true, and they find the tier 1 turret.
Really nice play by them, getting up there just a little bit faster than TLA to get their second turret of the game. Making good use of that Mountain Drake to grab that one. And TLA on the back foot, not finding their own advantages. Even that one kill that they forced down the bot lane through a nice gank by Hard, instantly CLG rotated down in that moment to cover that play. So we talked a little bit about how TLA might be favored because they have the teamwork to match up with CLG, but that's definitely not the case in this game, as at every step of the way, CLG's teamwork has shown through as better.
Also worth noting, I want to point out, if you look at the itemization across the board, because we talked about the Ninja Tabbies on the side of CLGA already, you're also seeing multiple Ninja Tabbies on the side of Team Liquid Tier 2. Viper trying to get himself away from Fallen Bandit and Wiggly, and he'll do so just fine. There's that 40% CDR. It is incredibly hard to lock Riven down. Let's take a look actually at what those cooldowns become with this level of CDR. The Valor, the E, the shield is on a 3.5-second cooldown, and Broken Wings is on a 7.8-second cooldown after the first cast.
Right, so if you're spacing that out between your E's and a little bit of walking, then you're cute.
It's almost permanent dashing.
Yeah, it's almost always up. To the point about you're making the Ninja Tabbies, both teams very physical damage heavy, but TLA really don't have anyone besides Hard who really prioritize too much armor while also being a threat. If Braum gets super tanky, who really cares? You're not really focusing him down anyways a lot of the time. So both sides going for a little bit of armor stacking, but it will feel much more effective on things like Jarvan, for example.
Right. Sanity will continue farming up here in the mid lane. Does have the Oblivion Orb.
So the extra magic penetration will be helpful against a team that is largely prioritizing that armor. Like we said, magic not going to be the name of the game this time around. Still less than 1,000 gold separating these two teams. Otto and Phil here in the top side, farming things up. We talked about these guys a little coming into the game, how Otto's normally this very reserved person. But then when you saw the comms at the end of the last match, the quarterfinals that they played to get here, very hyped up, very fired up, ready to go. Talking about his heart pounding in his chest getting into this game. Winning that last best of 5 in the 5th and final round to get here.
Definitely hit a new level of excitement. A pretty talkative guy at other times too. We had him on NALCS tonight a couple times. Afro, he's quite the character. Also, if you ever watch Afro's stream, it's usually the two of them being goofballs. So
just having a good time together.
Yeah. And this game kind of feels like he's relying on his team a lot to protect him, and it feels like a lot of comps kind of come down to that. You heard them talking about last week he was on the Kai'Sa, and he had to initiate for the Galio because they had no other tools, so a lot of times he would ult in, Galio would ult him, and then he'd have to flash out reactively. Not quite as much mobility this time, but it still feels like a lot of CLG's game plan will be about if they can keep him alive from the assassins.
Top lane being shoved out by the side of CLG Academy. Bottom side, you can see Fallen Bandit doing the same thing for the squad here, as they will put down plenty of vision around the Baron Pit. Control wards being placed down now as they sweep out the rest of the brushes with the trinkets. Seeing if maybe they have the opportunity to set something up, but it doesn't look like it. I like the fact that they're trying to make a play happen here, but Team Liquid is not playing into it. As we've already mentioned, CLG is just sort of trying to make these smaller movements, because if you try to go for anything too audacious, it's very easily punished.
But I do like the idea overall. We said, you know, around the 25-minute mark, start looking at the Baron buff, because the enemy team doesn't really have any range. So when they face check it, you have a good opportunity to chunk them out without being too committal, or with the Mountain Drake on your side and the double marks, maybe you can just finish it off. They started it there, turn off, they go back to mid-wave to try and control it, and they're just kind of poking and prodding at TLA, trying to get someone out of position, maybe get an engage off.
Blue trinket placed down in the pit does stop CLG Academy from going after that objective, so Team Liquid will continue to just keep things at a very even state right now. Infernal Drake will be the next Drake to spawn as well. CLG Academy does have 3 Elemental Drakes under their belt so far. It looks like this game could very easily go the distance mark, so if we get late enough into the game for that Elder Drake, CLG Academy could have a very big win condition on the board with that one. But right now, other win conditions are coming online. Ginsu's Rage Blade completed for Otto means he'll be doing plenty of auto attack damage with that Varus if he gets free firing time in these fights, which can be much easier said than done.
Yeah, we'll see if he can get to max stacks on the Ginsu's before these fights are over, with how explosive we're kind of expecting them to be with the double melee carries jumping on him. But still the right item for a lot of different reasons, obviously. Just up your DPS so much, helps around the neutral objectives if you're forcing them down. So obviously not criticizing the Ginsu's, just going to say it might be a little bit tougher of a time for Varus to get the passive stacked up.
CLG Academy heading multiple people back to base, getting themselves prepared. You can see control wards in the inventory. Everybody who just went back walked off the spawn platform with 2 control wards. Obviously planning on setting up some more control around that Baron area that they had swept out, but has since fallen out of their control. There's wards and ghost poros and trinkets and all sorts of crap floating around the river right now, but it all belongs to Team Liquid Academy.
Pretty polluted river, I guess.
Yeah, everybody's littering in the top half of the river so far today, but CLG Academy will look to grab their trash bags and clean a little bit of that up. This Team Liquid Academy, again, just responding right now, scaling up, waiting for the chance to find somebody vulnerable. Go after Wiggly, go after Otto. That's the name of the game, but here comes initiation. CLGA looking to make their move right here. Joey's taken very low, not going to be taken down. Doesn't even get taken too low. Actually, just immediately goes into the stasis. I believe the health bar had a display issue there for me.
Yeah, a little bit of a strange stopwatch there by Joey. Had already mostly gotten out from the situation without taking too much damage, so probably a little unnecessary. But they did get the TP out of Viper without having to commit their own, as Fallen Bandit had already moved up on the top side of the play. Viper did grab the turret with that push, so a small advantage potentially. Here they go, though.
There it comes. Galio ulti going to be coming in now as well. Pulverize finds its way on to 3, and CLG Academy have found their way into the fight now. Hard goes unstoppable, but Wiggly doesn't care. He has the damage. Who cares about CC if you're dead? CLG Academy find themselves 3 kills for nothing, and they will bulldoze down the mid lane.
40 seconds left with only an Akali and a Lucian on the enemy team.
This
They
may
have a
just be
minion
game.
wave. Yeah, they might just take it with the double marksman. We'll see what they choose to do here. They're going to keep pushing.
It was a very slow pace for the game, but CLG Academy may have just found the one fight that mattered. They go for the taunt into the dive. It will be a 1-for-1 trade support for enemy mid laner. It's Shoryu versus the world as he tries to hold on and make something happen. Gets off a couple of auto attacks, but will lose his Nexus. CLG Academy, a tale of 2 fights and 1 Nexus to win game number 1.
0 to 100 real quick as CLG end that game off one mistake by TLA. Riven jumping in, wanting to get a little bit of damage down onto the enemy Alistar, which then sets up, baits the rest of the team to walk a little bit forward, and the flash pulverized by Phil was fantastic. Great game out of him and the rest of CLG all around.
It was a game of reverse chicken. Instead of the cars driving towards each other, the cars had to drive away from each other for as long as they could. Whoever jumped into the other team first was going to seemingly lose. And when Viper just goes a little bit too far forward, gives Phil the opportunity to combo with Tuesday, get that pulverized into the Galio knockup, there's just not enough survivability on TLA.
Yeah, and it was tough too because we saw there were so many ultimates forced just a moment ago where the Jarvan was going in, they do the TPs, and so he's probably thinking, all right, this is a pretty relaxed situation. I'm not quite ready in team fight, live or die moment where if I mess this up, the game's going to end. So it was really hard to recognize that situation. But once CLG get those resounding 3 kills, they're able to close the game out super cleanly. And I was very impressed all around with them and their builds. I love the fact that Wiggly also went with the Phantom Dancer, knowing that he's going to be melee range of basically everyone on the enemy team comp, getting that down, and all the ninja tabbies that came in from both teams. I was very impressed, but CLG definitely out-executed.
And we heard Biofrost say on the desk before the game started that he thinks the team is prepared well for their games here today, and it looked like CLG Academy is a team that was ready to work together as a unit, make those plays as a team, and they had a strategy that they executed perfectly on.
Yeah, I think we were a little critical of the draft, saying, well, this isn't really the typical situation to take Galio and Jarvan and try and blow up backlines, but we also said, hey, if they recognize what they're doing when they pick these, it can still work out to try and block the assassins from diving in. And hats off to CLG. They understood that the draft was going to be played different than what we're used to seeing, but still very effective.
Yeah, the Riven, the Akali, they never really had the chance to go off, to do anything, to get those amazing montage moments that you want to see if you pick those champions. And for Team Liquid Academy, now you've got to reconsider some things. Now you've got to think about, is this really the win condition? I know there's the hype around the Riven for Viper, but if CLG have the answer, do you have to just immediately put that to the side and switch it up?
It's tough to say because I don't think Insanity played bad that game, but this is definitely not the typical TLA draft. So maybe they tried something here to kind of stunt on them with blue side having more power picks. Didn't work out.
Well, you've heard our thoughts on it, but now let's go ahead and send things over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. You had that toss on prompter for like 3 minutes. I'm watching you. No, it's fine, of course. So what a game we had. It's our second time talking about this game at the Champ Select, as we filled in that pause for a little while. But CLG coming away with the victory. You must be very proud.
I feel like a proud dad, but
Good.
I'm very happy that CLG won the first game. I mean, it's like a best-of-5 series, so anything can happen, but I think momentum is really important.
Yeah, and it was interesting. We talked about the kinds of things the teams wanted to do. Right? You had 3 winning lanes. I know you were actually keeping track of this, Aiden. At 28 minutes, every single lane on TLA had 300 plus CS.
Yeah, which is just indicative of they're all very good players
Yeah.
in terms of their laning. It was just, I don't think the composition came together. We talked about that a little bit where it was combo versus kind of individual play. And the combo is just way easier to execute.
Yeah, and we had a bunch of that. So our first replay is the first major combo, about 10 minutes into this one, as everyone collapsed after a Drake fight. And honestly, Tuesday on Galio did a whole bunch of work here.
Yeah, I thought this was actually going to be in TLA's favor because what Riven does, what Viper does is he uses 2 Qs when he comes out, holds the third one for 4 seconds, comes back in with the last Q. So there's his first Q, second Q, and then he's going to come back into the third Q. And I think that's one where you go, oh, that's game over. He gets exhausted, then the Jarvan ulti comes down, and the Galio ultimate. Everybody's used their movement abilities to get in, and even though the Akali got knocked up there off the screen, it didn't change anything if he had come down sooner. He was just going to be dead to rights. So
Yeah, TLA saw it, and they were like, nah, he was dead, it's fine.
yeah.
But yeah, that did happen. She was flying. Thing that happens.
Unlucky. Ninjas in the rafters, it happens. But that was the thing as well, is I thought like the Akali in this composition, they first picked it, and then I don't think it fit in because it got to the point where it's like, well, Riven's up. We should always take, Riven for Viper, it's pretty much like a no-brainer, right? And then I don't think the competition comes together after that. They don't have wave clear. Their pattern is very melee-centric against a Galio. So I think the Galio pick came up very big, and I think the composition overall for CLG is just a little more sound.
Yeah, and we saw a second team fight of that one. We can pull it up as well. This was just sort of, I guess, round 2 of the re-engage. CLG gets a hard 3 for 0 off of a Galio combo when that one comes up. And this is just their comp working once again. And right, there's the pile drive. And the Alistar stun sets up for Galio, so actually is able to hit some of these champions.
Yeah, really well done there by Phil to just make sure that he guarantees that the combo is going to go off. But right there, again, we talked about it earlier, CLG have all the go buttons. How does the TLA squad actually start a fight with Lucian, Olaf, Riven, Akali? The Braum is kind of the one that would start the fights off. But then you look at the other side, CLG Academy, they have all the go tools. They have the Alistar, they have the Varus ultimate. Everybody except for the Graves can really start a fight and force it to happen.
I think compositionally, TLA definitely had a harder comp to execute on stage, and a lot of times, if you're playing a best of 5 like on stage for like the second time, then you're gonna be pretty hesitant to execute your comp. And CLG in comparison had a lot easier of a comp to execute.
Sure.
And another thing is that TLA, they are relying on winning their lanes, and if they don't win their lanes really hard, then when they go into mid game, they don't have a 1-3-1 setup because they're not actually applying pressure anywhere. So that just means that CLG is just going to run them over.
So I want to press you on that a little bit. So one thing, as an aside, I just heard CLG has picked red side. So we're gonna stay on the same sides. TLA picked blue on game 1. CLG picking red for game 2. So they're going to stay where they are. But I want to press you. You talked about the comp being harder to execute, but not like impossible. So what would you have wanted to see TLA do that they weren't doing in this game? Because the game was close for a lot of it. Even when the kills were like 3-1 or 4-2, the gold was about 400 apart. So it was within reach. So what were the things you wanted to see done differently in the TLA side?
I think there's a couple things. First of all, they should have played a lot more aggressive in the early game because that's what most of their comp does. And they can get a lot of advantage by playing really aggressive either in the bot lane or in the top lane. One thing that was really important was that Akali actually lost her mid-tier 1 really early on in the game, and that just means that Galio is going to have a lot of pressure. So Galio being able to hover top, hover bottom can really affect the matchups and swing them over. So those two things are like really what kind of made TLA not have the best footing going into mid-game.
Yeah, and I think they tried to play a little bit too much to the win condition of CLG and have fights. I think being able to play your laning phase and play it aggressively, because if all 3 lanes are winning, the jungler can't be everywhere. So he's ganking 1 lane, you're winning 2, right? And what happened was they ended up giving up an opportunity to get the bottom turret because they just said, okay, the other team, we have our jungler here, because Olaf was bottom, right? This is when the swap from CLG came out to go topside and they got a turret. You could have pressured bottom, gotten that turret, potentially forced it to the tier 2, or even just went and swapped yourself. And I think that's where they gave up a lot of pressure and momentum in the game, because then they had the entire top side open, which meant they had no middle, no top turret, and that gives Baron control over to CLG, which we saw them kind of sweep it out and take the game into that area, which with a team fighting composition, you have to face check them, you have to walk up, and they can play around that area and kind of put pressure on you and stop you from winning all 3 lanes at that point in the game.
Yeah, it's very telling in a game where TLA had 3 winning lanes. I think all of them were up CS at various points in time. They all mostly had the push. It was CLG who got every neutral objective. They got the first 3 Drakes, got that Rift Herald, and it's like, how does Riven versus Jarvan not just have Olaf walk up and grab Herald and just solo that, right? Like, how does Akali not keep the Galio pushed with her infinite mana pool to make sure that doesn't get stopped? And yet, just Wiggly's walking around the map taking every objective. So some misgivings here on TLA side. Either way, CLG Academy does start the series with a win, but there's plenty more games to go. Stick around after the break. More Academy League action.
ULT going to be coming in now as well. Pulverize finds its way on to 3, and CLG Academy have found their way into the fight now. Hard goes unstoppable, but Wiggly doesn't care. He has the damage. Who cares about CC if you're dead? It's Shoryu versus the world as he tries to hold on and make something happen. Gets off a couple of auto attacks, but will lose his Nexus. CLG Academy, a tale of 2 fights and 1 Nexus to win game number 1.